Survival in space engineers can be intense when you first start. There are thousands of resources, no explanation as to what they do, and yet you expect it to thrive. In this video, I'm going to run through those resources, the methods for finding them, and what you need to make your survival experience easier. So, what resources are we discussing in this video? To start with, we have ice, stone, iron, we have nickel, silicon, cobalt, and then moving on, you have magnesium, you have gold, silver, platinum, and finally, and the most rare, you have uranium. And all of these can take different times to process and can affect your gameplay in different ways depending on what you find first and depending on what it is that you decide you want to do/build. Before we do look at what effects these resources will have, we first must have a look at what buildings/blocks you need in order to process these, how effective they are, and how long they take, as this can heavily impact your gameplay and influence where you are, what you build, and how quickly you can move forward in terms of engineering. One thing that you need to know is there's many types of refinement. The first one that you need to focus on is your survival kit. This will spawn and be on your starting rover when you first start in the world. You use this to make ingots from stone, and it will give you an array of your basic resources, such as iron, silicon, nickel, and a little bit of gravel. The next one is your basic refinery. This will take stone and pure resources, such as iron ore, magnesium ore, nickel, silicon, and cobalt ore. The downside to this is that it takes longer to process because the ore is more dense, and so it can take a while for it to actually kick into gear and to finish your queue. The bright side, it holds more resources than the survival kit does, and so it does actually weigh out a lot more of a pro rather than a con. This is the same for your big refinery or your industrial refinery, which both have the same amount of storage. They both are a lot quicker in terms of producing resources and ingots. The only downside is they require more power, so you need to make sure you have a full and good, strong power supply / reserves, as they can get quite hungry sometimes. And then finally, but not last, you have your O2H2 generator. Now, this only takes ice, and that is literally all it does. It just refills your oxygen, refills your hydrogen, just keeps you alive, which is a fantastic thing when you're trying to survive in this game. Your different buildings have different processes and different times for processing the information and the ores that you have put in them. So your survival kit will only process stone, and you can put a maximum of around about 2k worth of stone in there. It takes 23 seconds and 47 milliseconds to produce 1,000 ingots. Your basic refinery with the same amount of stone, so 2k, with 1.9k iron and cobalt ore, 1.81k worth of nickel, 1k silicon, and 1k magnesium. It takes an hour, 7 minutes, 42 seconds, and 44 milliseconds in order to finish processing. as you can see, it stores more, it takes more energy, and it also takes a lot longer to produce, but it is better than a survival kit because it processes rover, which means that it's not going to produce gravel unless you put stone in there, and at the same time it's more efficient than the survival kit, so you get more ingots out of the ore, which is a lot better and a lot more helpful. The only downside is it takes longer. In comparison to the basic refinery, your industrial and regular refinery with 2k stone, iron, silicon, nickel, cobalt, and magnesium, it takes 43 minutes to produce entirely and refine everything in there in one go. In order to make this a fair test, we did this without any of the additional bonuses that you can give to your refinery. We will cover them in another video. The fact that it's done this in 43 minutes is a lot better. So it just shows that the basic refinery is a stopgap between the refinery and the survival kit. So realistically and ideally, you want to use the refinery as soon as you've got your base up and running. You just need to ensure that you definitely have a strong enough power supply and power reserves, because they can be quite hungry. You get a lot more, once again, it's a lot more efficient out of all three. It processes raw. You can still process stone in it as well, and it will give you more iron out of the stone too. The only downside is it's huge, it's not airtight, and it can be very energy intensive when it's in the middle of processes and stuff. When you are first starting out, the survival kit is your best friend. You will use the stone that you mine in order to give you the general items and the resources that you need to build your outpost / base, depending on if you decide you want to build your HQ then and there. Once you've got the majority of the shell down and it starts needing things like metal grids for your cargo containers, as an example, you will then want to move on to a basic refinery once you've got enough energy and the base is built. One strong suggestion is do make sure your power supply is like spot on, and try and have a basic assembler built around the same time as a basic refinery, just because you'll be able to keep them inside the building and you'll be able to link them together. This will make it far easier, because then it means you don't have to keep moving resources from the refinery to the assembler, and it just makes everything a bit quicker for you. And then once you have this established or built your HQ, or you decide to convert your small outpost into your headquarters, you will want a refinery or the industrial refinery. Now these are incredibly large, and you will want them mostly outside, purely because the blocks are not airtight, and they're so large, it's just easier just having them outside in maybe like an industrial yard or something. And it makes it a lot easier to pipe them up, and you can also have like a large cargo container attached to them or something like that, and then it tends to be easier to manage and not worry about the state of your base once you finish building it. And finally, your O2H2 generator is not airtight, but it is the same size as your basic refinery, so you can shove it inside your base. You can just dump it in the corner. You don't have to have it linked up, but it can help, especially if you're on an alien planet and you've decided that you want to have a farm, as an example, or you want your base to be airtight and warm and full of oxygen, so you're not wasting oxygen whilst inside the base as well as being outside. So you will want a vent attached, and you will want to have it linked up. Okay, so you know your resources. Now you need to know how to find them and how to detect them. The very first thing that you can use, and it is quite straightforward, is your drill. Your drill has an inbuilt sensor, and I believe the range of it is 100 meters from your character. And as you can see, as soon as we've opened the drill up, it's immediately detected some silicon behind us, down here. So you would then either hold the right trigger to drill and be able to pick up stone, or you use the left trigger and you can dig a tunnel up until you get to the silicon, which is straight there, that little patch of black. That's your silicon ore. If you get your drill out and there's none in the area that you can detect, you can do this quick little trick where if you fly and you go straight up and you look for patches of grey, like over there, and if you then fly over to these, or run, drive, whatever it is you're doing, and you land above, and then you get your drill out, it will immediately come up with more resources. And the patches are mainly used for when you're flying around and you're in a ship. You will be able to see them before your ore detector senses them. And then that brings us on to the final thing that you can use, which is your ore detectors. Your ore detectors are very useful. These are your two large grid versions. This is the base game version. It's just a bog standard ore detector. And this is from one of the packs, which is newer, fancier, and it just looks cool. Your ore detector range is 150 meters. Now, if you turn them on, there we go, see it spinning up. If you turn these on and then you have a look around on your HUD, you will notice nothing is popping up. So they'll detect the ore, but it won't relay the information to your HUD unless you have an antenna. So if you watch, as soon as we switch the antenna on, and you have a broadcast range of maximum 50,000 meters. The 50,000 meters takes a lot more energy. So the further you want to broadcast, the more energy it costs. And it will then broadcast the ore detector information to your suit. So you turn it on, and there we go. Suddenly it's picking up nickel there, iron 153 meters away, silicon directly next to us. And that's realistically, that is all you need. There is small grid versions of the ore detectors for your ships. However, they also need like a antenna to work. You do get small grid versions of the antennas. You have a couple. You've got a compact, which looks quite good. parabolic antenna dish, laser antennas. And laser antennas are more for between like outpost to outpost, or like a radar tower to a radar tower. You have to have them facing each other, so you can't have like a mountain in the way as an example, because it just won't go for it. And that is those, and these are what you use to detect what you're up to. And the final thing that we need to discuss and make you aware of is your supply and demand for specific blocks and items and things such as that. So you will notice as you get further into building and improving upon your base or vehicles that you need more of one resource than others. So it's a good idea to try and match your supply and demand with what it is that you actually have in order to process. So one thing that a lot of people do who play this game is have several refineries going at once, and they normally separate the different resources into one refinery each, or they have a dedicated refinery for, say, iron, cobalt. They might have another one dedicated to silicon and magnesium, and things such as that. They just make it more like a factory setup, and it should help process ores easier instead of having everything in a queue. Because if you have stuff in a queue, you can go into the settings and move them around, but it's more of a ball ache than anything else, because you have to sit there and watch it and stare at the menu, when you would probably rather be out building or mining resources or repairing your vehicle or fighting aliens, whatever. Yeah, it's just something that will be done, and we will cover that in another video as well, showing you how to do this setup so it organizes and separates the different ores for different refineries. And thank you for watching.